What the Tech is sponsored by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. And by Stitcher Radio. Listen on the go via the Stitcher mobile app. For more information, go to stitcher.com/GFQ.
What the Tech?
Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. Boy, a lot's going on this week. Boy. I'm Andrew Zane. I'm joined by Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Boy. I tell ya. It's been quite a day.
So before we start, what part of today's Apple announcement was your favorite?
Wow. There's so many to choose from.
There has to be one. I have mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might go with the MacBook Retina 13-inch that is $1,700.
Yeah,
twice the price of an Ultrabook, at only twice the weight. Also twice the resolution, of course. But I'm not actually positive that's such a huge benefit for anybody. But they said, I think it was Tim Cook who said, only Apple could deliver this type of machine for only $1,699.
And the place erupted.
My first two cars cost less than that. Are you kidding me?
And the place erupted.
Of course it did.
They were nuts. My favorite part was when they had that little commercial that they played with the piano. They were playing the keyboard, and the place erupted for that. Thought it was a great
Puppet tweeted at that time that this Apple ad suggests I need to buy 2 iPads to enjoy this app.
Yeah, actually it does.
Which it does, yeah.
A lot happened with Apple.
You do.
We're gonna cover some of it. I don't want to. I don't want to do an entire show on this because there's a lot of Microsoft stuff happening.
Not really worth it.
Google has an announcement, but to pretty much sum it up, and also we have there's a meetup this week. There's a lot happening. I mean, this is one of the most intense weeks in Paul's life.
What hasn't happened today, by the way?
What?
Is those people who got a Surface RT for review were supposed to be able to publish their reviews by now. And that has not happened. And at least one of them inadvertently triggered their review to appear on their site because they didn't get the memo. And I don't know this for a fact, but I do know that the wait is, or the reason for this day is because this is the day that Mossberg publishes his reviews.
Okay.
And my speculation, and it is only speculation, but my guess here is that he had some issue with this thing and had shown them the review and they wanted to get him to adjust it somehow, and they're kind of fighting over it or something. But these things have obviously been pushed back. This should have already happened by now. So it's interesting that that they haven't appeared. But there should be reviews of the Surface RT out sometime soon, possibly while we're doing this.
Any minute.
Yeah,
I'm curious to read those. Actually, I'm really curious to read those.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to imagine what it's going to be. I mean, I suspect the machines are beautiful, and that the limitations of RT are going to be sometimes frustrating. It's like there's the whole review right there. But we'll see.
Which I definitely want to get to that. There's so much to talk about. I just want to glance over this announcement today. It was supposed to be a very small announcement initially. That's how it was presented.
Yep.
By many tech bloggers saying, oh, yeah, just an add-on announcement. It's for the iPad mini. That's all we're getting. And about a couple days ago, we got this onslaught of information saying, no. This is a big announcement. They're revamping their entire line.
Their entire...
Well, Macs got... Yeah. I mean, almost every Mac got an update except for the Air.
There was more going on with the iPad than I thought was going to be the case.
A lot more. And the biggest announcement to me, I mean, it wasn't big, but I was really surprised. He announced a 4th generation iPad.
I know.
Really nonchalantly. I mean, it was done in like this.
Well, okay, but you know what, though? Before they did that, I was thinking to myself that the introduction of the iPad mini puts Apple in kind of a tough spot because obviously they like to do these yearly updates. And if they release this new, smaller iPad now, and it's obviously not going to be up to spec with the 3rd generation iPad from a processing power standpoint and so forth. It will be like the iPad 2. It puts them in a weird spot because obviously in the spring, people are going to expect a new iPad 4, and what do they do then? Do they replace the iPad mini then? Do they replace the, I mean, how do they do that? Do they wait another 6 months? Are these things always going to be off kilter from each other? And so it's interesting to me that they decided to bump up the current one. They didn't change the body at all. I believe it's the same machine, essentially.
Same exact thing.
New innards. Release the new one. And this suggests to me that 6 months from now, when the new, they could in fact update both of these things yet again, or maybe now it gets onto a fall release schedule. Maybe it's once a year. We'll see. But very interesting and unexpected that they would update the big iPad.
Very unexpected, but I think they just did it for one reason. They want to put those lightning bolt ports on these things. And that's the only reason why they updated it. I mean, all they did was they changed it to a front-facing FaceTime HD camera, which there's no specs for it, by the way. We don't know what that means, 720p, but we don't know what any of that means. And,
I haven't had time to even look at this thing yet, so.
Yeah, and they bumped up the CPU. They put a new CPU in, and that's about it.
And so, it's interesting because that one is actually available now, isn't it? If you wanted to buy the new iPad, the 4th generation 10-inch iPad, I think that's available now.
Let's see. I'm going to go to their store right now.
Looks like it is. I mean, the iPad mini, it says from $329. Well, actually, they've changed this. So it used to say you could pre-order. Maybe it does say that for both. Okay, now it looks like it's for pre-order. I
iPad would run
myself. Yeah, no, it's not there yet. Interesting.
Okay, so pretty much it's exactly the same thing. All right, and this is where it gets confusing.
Yep.
So they announce this thing. They glance right over it. Okay, fine. It's not a big update. The big update is the iPad mini. They announced the mini, which is pretty cool. But here's my issue with this. They compared it. They did this comparison with the Nexus 7, which is a $199
I know.
entry-level consumption device.
Yep.
They did this whole thing about look at this one, look at our quality, ours is so much better. And then you're starting to think, okay, wow, they may bring the price down. Maybe it's going to be $249. Maybe it's going to be $299. It wasn't. It's $329 in a bizarre price point.
It is weird. It's I'd have to say I think the highest end guess on price was probably $350. I think everyone would probably agree Apple needs to be $299 is the sweet spot to, everyone sort of understands their stuff is more expensive and all that. It's such a weird product.
It was really weird, yeah.
Yeah, they got some stuff right. If you look at the form factor, the bezel on the side is significantly smaller than it is on the big iPad. It's got a really thin bezel on the sides. I actually like that a lot. I think that looks nice. I'm just surprised it doesn't come with a higher res screen. The machines they're competing against, like the Fire HD, the Amazon Kindle Fire HD.
They have much higher displays.
Much higher resolution. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that.
I think they're doing that because this is going to be the first gen, and they're going to put the Retina in the other one.
It just feels artificially limited and temporary.
Well, doesn't every first gen Apple device feel that way?
Here's some making lemonade though for you, because the interesting side effect of this, I should say positive side effect, is that because the screen resolution is lower, the content that you will get for this thing won't take up as much space, possibly, if you buy like SD content, as it would on a Retina display. In other words, when Amazon had their Kindle Fire announcement a couple months ago, one of the things they were saying is like, when you go to HD, you need a lot more storage space. So they bumped up the storage. You remember the base model went from 8 to 16.
Yeah.
On Apple's, the base model is 16.
And on this, it's an 8. This is an 8.
What is an 8?
I believe the mini's an 8.
No, it's 16.
Oh, it's 16. Okay. You're right.
So in other words, a base mini with 16 gigs of storage, assuming you're renting or buying, standard definition content instead of HD, you could actually fit a lot more on it in the same amount of storage space. I know this is a complete rationalization, but it is, it's not a complete negative. That
I mean, I honestly think that this is their way of just getting people to buy it, and the next one is going to be the one that you actually want, just like every other Apple device. It's always the other one. It's every other Apple device is the one that you really should get if you're going to get an Apple device. But I don't
know that they know how to make things cheaply. That might be part of it.
But do you think they care?
Listen, the same people
100 million
on
devices
a Retina
sold.
display and a MacBook are going to explain to the same people that a non-retina display on the Mini is absolutely,
It's absolutely
okay.
good. Yeah.
And the truth is, I think a non-retina display on a tablet is, in fact, absolutely okay. It really is.
There were a few things that were announced or said during this announcement that kind of pointed in the direction that Apple is headed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you brought up an interesting thing about it. It's like the bezel is much thinner on this device than it is on the other iPad. They have put in with software, it detects the point of touch. So if you're holding it and your fingers, of course, going to hit the screen, it knows that
which erases the need for the big bezel.
Yeah, so it kind of knows that you're holding it, so it's not going to be like, okay, this is where you touched.
Okay.
They, in my opinion, I think they're doing that to kind of prep us for a widescreen iPad. So rather than making the form factor bigger, they're able to expand the bezel, make it a thinner bezel on the device.
Well, I mean, let me look at it again, but this device in particular, because the bezel is so thin on the sides, it avoids that squat look, which you get with the Kindle Fire HD. I have to say, one of the things that was a little odd about that machine is because I was so used to the Nexus 7. When you compare the Nexus 7 with the Kindle Fire HD, the Kindle Fire HD seems kind of fat, and it's because it has a pretty thick bezel around all four sides, kind of like the iPad Mini would look if the bezel side of the top and bottom was there on the sides as well.
But the display, I mean, to me, you know what it looks like to me? It looks like the Galaxy Note 2. I mean, it's just this fat screen. It's not a widescreen device, so it's like big and fat. And they did this weird comparison, like we said with the Nexus, and they're showing, if you take out the bottom bar and you take out the screen size, look how small it is. Well, you're comparing two things. One, you have about an 0.8 of an, it's 0.8 inches bigger. Number one, the screen. Number two, that's a widescreen device. So yeah, of course it's going to be narrow when you put it in widescreen mode. When you put it in landscape mode, of course it's going to look
1024 by 768. It's not widescreen anything. That's 4:3.
No. I'm talking about what's the Nexus 7?
I think it's what is it? I think it's 1280 by
720.
Is it, or 800 even?
Whatever it is. It's a widescreen display.
Yeah.
So when they were doing this landscape mode. So they were like, look at how much space you have on our device, and look how cropped it is on the Nexus. Well, of course,
1280 by 800.
Yeah, the headroom is going to be a lot more.
The form factor is thinner. It's got like a taller, not quite as stretched out as the iPhone 5 and the new iPod Touch, but it's not as squat looking. I guess is how I would say. The iPad Mini has got a real 4:3 vibe to it. I mean, the form factor itself and the screen both have a, it is that, it's a little squat.
I can't say anything bad about it. Yeah, I can't say anything bad about this device. It's going to sell a lot. A lot of it. I mean, they're going to sell millions of these. People are going to buy two devices now instead of buying one device a year. They're going to buy the Mini and they're going to buy the regular iPad. They've sold 100 million units already in 2.5 years, and they're going to sell another 100 and something million within a year because people are going to buy two of them.
Oh, totally.
Here's where it gets wacky for me. And people know I have a MacBook Pro, I have an iPad, I have an iPod Touch. I'm in the Apple environment. I'm not an Apple. I don't hate Apple. I like Apple. I like my laptop, but I like it for the right reasons. You know why I like my MacBook Pro? I have an i7 in there, and it's a pretty looking device. If I was looking...
you cannot discount... I kind of make fun of Apple for their form over function thing, but the truth is, when you look at just regular people who, are buying things, you can't discount the beauty of a device in their decision-making process for buying it,
Yeah, I mean, that's why I bought it.
The new iPod Touches are beautiful. The new iPhone 5 is beautiful. This iPad Mini is pretty to look at, just like any other Apple device. Absolutely.
I also like the trackpad on this thing. Yeah, I also like the trackpad on the MacBook Pro, and that's why it actually makes my life a lot easier because I have a real difficult time with some of the other laptops on the market.
Well, yeah, except I love that thing they have on the ThinkPads.
Do you know
the little thumb numbing thing? I don't even know what it's
I do love that too. That's such an old school thing.
It's so accurate. I mean, I do a lot of graphics work and stuff like that. I can't use a trackpad for that stuff, and that thing is the only thing aside from a mouse that actually works, for that kind of detail.
Can I tell you something about my MacBook Pro? I get electrocuted from my MacBook Pro.
You should get electrocuted.
No,
for using.
People thought I thought I was the only one, and I honestly thought I was hallucinating this.
Is it like the aluminum
yeah,
conducting thing or
yeah.
something?
If I put my hand on the aluminum, I get shocked.
You know what? I don't have a problem with that.
That I'm getting shocked.
I think that's perfect. You know,
I called Apple. I'm like, is there something wrong? They're like, I've never heard of that. I'm like, you are so full of it. You know, I'm coming from the Windows side, and this is what you guys do.
So you're reading a script.
Yeah, a little jolt here and there, but I know we're talking about this for like 25 minutes.
How you know it's alive, Andrew.
Right.
That
just
and
a little
Siri.
It's a little love pinch.
You're touching it wrong.
You're touching it wrong. The pricing structure to me has totally gotten out of whack for these.
Okay,
they're
so
mobile
I've been meaning
devices.
to compare this, right?
Okay, let's start from the bottom. Okay, let's start from all the way on the bottom with the iPod Touch.
Okay.
If the iPod Touch was $199, I would have no problem with this. I'd be perfectly fine with everything. Everything is justifiable. You know what? $199. You could have priced this at $299. So you have $199, $299, then you jump to $499.
But
no. I'm sorry. You do have $399 because you have the older generation iPad, and then you have the new one for $499. But it's not. They totally screwed everybody.
Look, they really muddy the waters with the old model thing. I know why they do it. I even semi-approve of it. But, you know, as I think I wrote this somewhere recently, I mean, you don't go to Toyota to buy a Camry and discover that it's a little more money than you wanted to spend. And the guy says, that's okay. We still make and sell the last 2 years models too. And those ones are cheaper than the new one. Like that, this doesn't happen
by $100. Yeah.
Elsewhere, you know? So let's just,
and they're still doing it though. That's the problem.
They're doing it. No, they're not just still doing it. They're doing way more of it. So, but let's forget that for a moment. So $299 is an iPod Touch, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, $299.
32 gigs of storage.
No. But wait, they're selling the old one. Remember, they're selling.
What I'm saying is forget the old one. Let's just talk new stuff.
New stuff.
So 32 gig iPod Touch. And so you actually get some stuff with the iPod Touch that you're not going to get with the iPad Mini. One, you're getting twice the amount of storage, which actually is pretty cool. You're also getting the widescreen resolution, a 16:9 screen, right?
Okay.
And you're also getting a device that I need to test this, but I suspect can take decent pictures and is a device that you shouldn't feel ashamed of taking photos with out in public.
Okay.
Right? That it's something you can fit in your pocket. It, I think, has a decent camera. You know, it's obviously not iPhone 5 quality, but decent camera. So Retina display, double the storage. It's a camera, right? So when you kind of move up in price by $30 to the iPad Mini, obviously the screen is bigger, but 4:3. But then you lose all this stuff. You lose half the storage.
You lose Retina. You lose storage.
You lose Retina. And you lose, I mean, not that this is a big deal, but you lose the color choices too. I mean, the iPod Touch is kind of some kind of nice.
Yeah, the rosebud pink is my personal favorite.
I think we all.
And the hideous yellow.
Yes, I call that Nokia yellow.
Nokia yellow, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little odd, and obviously when we would talk about these products before we knew about them, you think iPod, iPad Mini, iPad. You've got this natural progression in functionality / size, I guess, and you don't see that in these prices, right?
Yeah.
Because when you pay $30 more for an iPad Mini, you're kind of losing some stuff that I think is going to be important to some people. You know?
I don't. I'm the only. If I'm going to defend Apple on this, the only thing that I could think of is that they've really screwed themselves with this Retina display, and the fact that it's probably costing them. The cost of these displays is a lot higher than they expected, so they're justifying raising the price and selling an older generation device on the market. That's possibly some sort of valid argument. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why you would have a 4th generation iPod Touch on the market and a 5th generation iPod Touch, and you're eliminating the 16 gig. You're adding a 32 as the entry model, but you're totally taking that. Why?
But here's why.
I don't get it.
It really is a numbers game. You know, a lot of people try to argue against me when I talk about market share because in some markets that's not where how Apple does well. You know, Apple even today they said we have the #1 selling portable computer in the United States. We have the #1 selling desktop computer. You know, they still have under 10% market share in the United States, and they still have 5% market share in the whole world. And so there are different ways of saying the same, using the same numbers to make your case. Those low-end devices, those previous generation devices, like on the iPhone where they sell the iPhone 4 and the 4S, devices that are 1 to 2 years old, or the 4th generation iPod Touch that you're talking about, are aspirational devices. These are the machines where, you're in the Apple store because you see the new ones, but you really can't afford them. Apple is a luxury maker of devices. They make expensive stuff. And so the way they can compete with an absolute horde of barbarians, on the Android side and also with Microsoft and the PC side, is to offer these
older devices,
previous devices. It's the only way they can do it, and I don't begrudge them that. I don't.
Let me ask you this: if you came up to me and you said, "Andrew, do me a favor, go to the store and get me an iPad," I'm gonna go to the store and pick up the cheapest one.
Sure.
I'm not going to look at, this one has Retina, this one doesn't.
Okay.
I think it's totally saturating the market with products that I don't think the iPod Touch 4th Gen should be on the market.
Really well, and by the way, it's not just that. By the way, I agree with you, whatever that's worth. But
I know you do.
There's a deeper level of confusion. They talk about like processors all the time. The new iPad, as they introduced it, they said, this one has an A6. I mean, this is it's like twice as fast over here. It's twice as fast over here. It makes the other one look stupid. And then the very next thing they announce is the iPad Mini. And they're like, the iPad Mini has that previous generation processor. This is way better.
Did you notice
than the thing that was in the iPad 2? They just crapped on this processor, but now they're pushing it.
It was a very different Apple. It was a very different Apple keynote today. Because if you notice, they did not talk about gaming. They did not talk about graphics at all. At all. They didn't talk about... they spoke about apps and how it scales properly, which I thought the comparison they did, actually, and I'll defend them, and I think they were 100% on point with this, when they compared the app experience on iOS compared to Android. When they did that comparison, it's 100% accurate. The apps on Android are just downscaled or upscaled.
Well, wait, okay. So they did something a little cheap there, where they was, in this case, I think it was a mobile website or the web browser.
I think it was Yelp.
The Nexus 7 version loads the mobile version of the site, whereas the iPad loads the desktop version.
The desktop version.
That's a little cheap. It's also, they also made this point a couple times where they said iPad apps are not stretched out version of iPod apps or, iPod Touch apps or whatever, iPhone apps. They are apps that take advantage of the extra real estate. Well, yeah, that's the same. That's a nicer way of saying they're stretched out versions of the iPhone. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Apple developers are making nice apps for the iPad.
They're making very nice.
There's no doubt about it. But
because there's a lot of money.
There's no reason that can't happen on the Android side as well.
But it hasn't. yet, and that's a little right. But alarming.
This is where Apple's, in this case, until now, fairly limited variety of device types has helped them. For the beginning, it's very simple. We have iPhone, we have iPad. 3 years into it, it's not that simple. We have 3 different iPhones, and now we have 3 different iPads.
Yeah.
But, I guess from the app developer perspective, they really have 2 different iPads, right? Because the screen reses are the same on the lower end 2 devices. But it like I said, it gets complicated. I do wonder how, for example, a developer writes an app that, actually a game, let's say a game, like you make a racing game or something. You're going to design it for the iPhone 5. The iPhone 5 has one processor. The iPod Touch has a different processor, previous generation, right? We know, because they talk about it so much, how much better the higher end processor is than the last one. But then that iPod Touch 4th generation has an even older processor. So it's weird to me that it's even possible to write games that work well on all 3 of those things. And we're just talking about those small screen devices.
Yeah.
Once you bump it up to the iPad, it gets very convoluted, I would think, supporting not just the multiple screen reses, but the weird variety of hardware that these devices must have.
And what's going to happen with the next generation when they bump up the resolution again?
Right. I mean,
You know, that's. I mean,
Sure.
I
At
think
some
it's
point
been.
you're going to see a dividing line, and it's going to be this lightning adapter,
Yeah.
and they're going to say something like, "This app works with any lightning-based iOS device." That, I swear, that will be for a while. That will be a baseline.
Yeah.
Right?
I had a very funny experience with a relative. I went over one of my cousin's house, and he's an older cousin, and he has a teenage kid. And he was asking me about the Mac. He's like, "Oh, are they going to get that new Retina display?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think they are." And we're sitting down, and he has a MacBook, and the thing is just covered in grease. I mean, it's just filthy. And he goes, "Dad, I really want the new display. It's going to look so much better. I could do Photoshop on it." He goes, "You know what? You want a new display?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay." He took some Windex, he sprayed it on his screen, he cleaned up. He goes, "Here's your goddamn display."
Yep, a million times better.
A million times better. I'm like, you know what? It looks really good now. But it's a very interesting time we're living in with all the technology that's coming out. I'm wondering, are they screwing themselves by releasing? I mean, so now we're talking about a 6-month cycle from the previous one.
Well, we'll see if they maintain this. I mean, this might have been a bump in the schedule just to get this in there.
I think it was a bump to get that display. The adapter
the problem
on.
with Apple is they rely on these things. You know, they rely on these huge events, and like you said, I mean, we're at the point now where there's too much. Like, what's the spring event now? You know, what are we looking forward to now?
There should be 2 events. I mean, 3 events. One should be the Mac event. One should be the iPad and the iPhone.
But I think they're escalating it because these event, these shipping events, the launch events they have are so popular. It's so amazingly popular. It's like the only way they can kind of compete with that horde I was talking about. You know, these other companies, the hundreds of companies that just dump product in the market at such a regular rate. I mean, at some point, I just don't. It's like they're, blowing against the wind. I mean, I just don't understand.
It's a lot. It's
what
lot.
It looks like next year. And so obviously within the next 12 months, it's reasonable to expect a new iPhone, right? New iPods, and now perhaps new iPads. I'm sorry, I said iPads. iPods and iPads. So all 3 of the major iOS devices will be replaced within 12 months. But it's only reasonable for that to happen almost exactly 12 months from now.
12 months from now, and that's not going to happen.
I mean?
I think they're going to do it in March. I think they're going to jump right into the regular cycle with the iPad.
Either way, I think it's a problem.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying. That's the point. Like, in other words, if they actually update some of these things in 6 months, there's a certain fatigue that sets in where it's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, you update these things all the time. But if they wait 12 months, I mean, how many Android devices are going to come out in the next 12 months?
Oh God,
Hundreds,
yeah,
possibly 1,000. I don't, I don't know.
Let me ask you this: do you find it bizarre that now that they replaced the 3rd gen with the 4th gen iPad,
Yeah.
it's these goddamn names, Paul. Now that they're
actually,
replacing,
what do they call it? Wait, so hold on. Remember, the 3rd gen was
New.
the all new iPad.
It's the new iPad. The 3rd gen iPad never happened. That's how they're looking at this. There's no 3rd gen. It
just says iPad with Retina display.
iPad with Retina display, which is a new iPad.
Well, but in other words, but the last one was literally called the new iPad.
The new iPad. Now this one's called iPad with Retina.
So the new iPad is not just old now. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. You can't buy it.
It's gone.
But the iPad 2 is on the market still. So this idea that you have a 2nd gen, the previous generation device on the market after the new one comes out, that's out the window. What they have done now is they have the iPad 2 non-Retina and the Retina display. So this might be something they might try to do. They might try to say, okay, you know what? We're just going to create a non-Retina display as a cheaper iPad.
I actually think that's a genius idea.
I think that's what they should do.
I would rather have the innards be the same and the display be less and have it cost less.
Yeah, $399. I think that's a great price point for that device.
Too. Yep.
For something that's not, 2 generations old.
But, it's weird. They don't really do things that way, do they?
No.
It makes more sense in the whole Apple way of doing things for them to just sell the old ones. You know, that's how they do things.
I want to move on from the Apple talk, Paul.
Okay.
I do.
never wanted to, but okay.
I know you want to talk about this. I know you're wearing your Apple blue shirt and you're very excited for all things Retina. But I do want to do a little plug, little self-promotion here, Paul. I think we should be very proud of ourselves. What the Tech is in the finals
Wow.
for the Stitcher Award. Our listeners voted for us extensively, and we're in the finals. People could vote for us for the finals. They're announcing it in November. I believe November 5th is the final date. But you could go to, and I'll tell you the link right now, and vote for us because we're up against some tough people, Paul. I have to tell you.
I was going to ask who were we up against?
It's mostly Leo.
Mostly Leo.
Yeah, it's like two Twitch shows.
Yeah, but which ones are they? Because most of his shows are really kind of
This Week in Tech and Tech News Today.
This Week in Tech is good, and then what was the other one?
Tech News Today.
Oh, maybe I'm confusing those two shows.
Okay.
Tech News Today is the one with Ayaz. And,
yeah.
Tom Merritt.
Yeah, they're both great shows.
Okay.
And Tech News Today and This Week in Tech are from Twit. If you're on GFQ Live, you could just click on a little banner on the bottom and vote for us. Because I actually want to win this.
Jeez.
Because Mac Observer is also up there.
What?
They're up for a nomination. And, it's a little bizarre. And
I've never voted. I should vote.
This is my little issue with this. The only two podcasts really are us and Twit. The other guys are websites that happen to do a podcast.
Interesting.
Like, it's not like, okay, it's a bunch of shows on there. So that was my little issue with it. But if you want to vote for us, please go ahead. You can vote every day. Voting ends November 5th. And I'd really appreciate it. And Paul will personally come to your house and give you an iPad, actually.
So it feels odd that I could vote for myself.
Go vote for yourself as many times as you want, Paul. Stitcher the guys at Stitcher are pretty cool, and I actually support them a lot.
Do I have to vote for every?
No, just us. You
category?
just click. No, you just hit click and to check in, and you scroll to the bottom and you hit submit.
Okay.
It's a little complicated.
Oh, Hardcore History's in there too. That's a good one.
Vote for them.
Travel with Rick Steves, also good. But you know what my favorite podcast is? Have I ever mentioned this?
No.
There's a podcast called How Did This Get Made? Features a couple of the guys who were in the TV show The League.
How did this get made?
It's about really bad movies.
Yes. It
is one of the funny. I'm like addicted to this podcast.
It's like really crappy movies.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, they're part of Earwolf, which is a podcast network.
Really good.
They have a good
ours is good too. So get this app. You voted for What the Tech as best tech.
Best tech podcast, yes.
I can vote once a day.
Once a day. And I advise everybody to vote once a day. I don't know what we get, though. What do we get if we win?
I assume there's some sort of a statue.
I imagine there to be this gigantic...
If we win, I'll switch to Apple.
Oh, man.
What did I just say?
I think now everybody wants to vote for you. You should make it clear you can vote once a day. Yes, you could vote once a day. Once a day you could vote for us. You get to say you won over Leo. No, the odds are Leo's probably going to kick our ass, but that's the truth. But we could try. That's also, I know I'll probably won't win, but I'm curious how well we'll do. Because this little rink-a-dink podcast that we do has created some buzz over the last couple months, and I attribute that all to Paul because he's the one with talent here.
We are we're the Art Bell,
of podcasting.
Podcasting,
yeah. Broadcasting live from his bunker in the Philippines,
exactly in Nevada, wherever. Yep.
So let's get to the Microsoft news because this is the big story here.
Is there Microsoft news?
I don't know. There's something called Windows 8 coming out.
Oh, yeah.
There's Windows RT. There's something about a Surface. Oh, before we go into that, I'm not getting the Surface.
You're not getting the Surface.
Last week, I said I ordered it. Do you remember that? I pre-ordered.
Yep.
And I didn't get any confirmation after when you get that email that says, like, hey, your order has gone through. I never got it. And I looked at my phone, and I saw Citibank has called you, like, 3 times. It's like hours later. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I looked at my banking, no charge. The money wasn't deducted. I called them up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? They put a hold on my account because they saw suspicious activity. They said, who would buy this thing? I made a couple Amazon purchases.
That was why?
They were like,
are you sure the suspicion wasn't on your side?
Hey, listen, I've seen you buy a couple Apple products. I just wanted to make sure you bought this.
This couldn't possibly be right.
Microsoft Surface. I bought a bunch of stuff that morning from Amazon. And the way Amazon processed it is, I guess they're promoting third-party companies more now. I don't know if they changed it, but it wasn't like Amazon shipping it. It was like Amazon was shipping it for so-and-so. And every item in my cart was billed individually.
Okay.
So I literally bought like 22 different things. Every one of them was charged individually, one after another, to my credit card. $22.95 from Amazon, $30 from Amazon, $15 from Amazon.
That's actually really suspicious.
Really, and so when I just bought that stuff, 12 o'clock hits, I do the pre-order, I process it. It says, thanks for your order.
You know, every time you make a purchase is an additional credit card charge, right?
Yeah, that's
so it's almost like someone was doing this on purpose to bump up
that
the
is? I didn't even
credit
think
card
of
charges.
that. I didn't even think of that.
You know, I mean, that's, by the way, for all the Apple bashing and stuff. I mean, one of the things that Apple does really well, I think, is the credit card charge stuff. And they'll sit back and wait while you buy stuff online. And then you'll get a single bill after a couple of days that has all the stuff on it.
Oh, for iTunes. Yeah. Yeah, for iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Amazon, it was Amazon, not Amazon Marketplace. Like, I literally bought, I bought floor wax. And I bought, car polish. I just did, a bunch of shopping because I didn't want to go out. And they billed me individually for every single item. And my credit card company was like, whoa, what is this? They stopped it halfway through.
Yeah.
And it just so happened it was the time that I was ordering the Surface. So now I'm not getting the Surface. Yes, I said car polish. I ordered car polish from Amazon.
It has, let's just say it has multiple uses.
I did buy floor polish too, actually. Yeah. So I got screwed with this. I'm not getting the Surface, and I can't pre-order it. I can't order it now because it's like a 3-week wait. So I have to go wait online at midnight.
Yeah, that's part of our little schedule change, by the way.
Okay, you want to go through this?
Well, I think we should. We're going to have to go through it eventually. Let's see if I can get this in my head. The Microsoft event on Thursday starts at 10 a.m. and goes until 2 or something.
2 o'clock.
No, 3 maybe? I don't know. We're doing Mary Jo and I should say, are doing Windows Weekly at 3 o'clock. No, at 4 o'clock.
At CNET.
At CNET. The original plan was for us to have our meetup at 8 p.m. Until 11, and then we would head over to the Microsoft store for the Midnight Madness stuff. The problem is Microsoft is now having an event at the store that I think starts at, I think it could start as early as 9.
Oh, that's weird.
And for this reason, we're actually going to move the event up earlier. I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say maybe we'll print this somewhere. But I think maybe even 6:30ish.
Okay.
Because we're going to want to head over to the store, unfortunately. And if you need to get in line, the store is actually going to be open at 10 p.m.
But can't I just walk in there with you and be like, look who I'm with, give me one?
Yeah, but you can. But you're still going to need to get in line at 10 o'clock if you want to be serious about getting a Surface.
Can I pay
I have a
someone
feeling
off?
that even then it might be a problem because
Really?
the Times Square store is the only one open in the United States at night for Midnight Madness. So
How
if it
about the
doesn't
other
work
store?
out,
What time?
you were talking about getting one from a different store in the morning.
Yeah, I was
So
saying
I
there's
guess you'll know what you have to do at that point.
yeah, there's a store in Huntington, Long Island that they opened up. I could possibly go there, but
Yeah.
the event, by the way, is going to be at the Social Bar. Social Bar NYC is the place. Their website.
Yeah.
I just posted in the chat room. I think it'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a lot of fun. So we're
It's
bumping
basically
that.
going to involve us drinking a lot. There'll be some giveaways.
So that's going to be bumped to what? 6 o'clock.
I think so.
Okay.
Let me see if Mary Jo's online. You think I would just know this? I'm
Yeah.
having a really hard time keeping all this stuff in my head. Mary
Well,
Jo's
I mean,
not,
we'll
so-
post it. I'm going to post a link in the website too.
Yeah, I will put a link on my site about this within the next 24 hours.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. I know a lot of our viewers are going to be coming down, so I'll have swag to give away too. GFQ stuff.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
bringing GFQ mugs. Mary Jo asked me if I have anything to give away, and I said I have a bunch of mugs. So I'm going to give that away. But the Surface is coming out this Friday, and there's still a lot of confusion over this thing. I cannot tell you, Paul, how many emails I've received over the last week from people saying, "Hey, I still don't understand what the difference is."
I have been talking and complaining about the end of this month for a long time about all the travel I have to do and all the places I got to be and how terrible this is going to be. But the truth is, the build-up to this, the past week, has been possibly the most horrifically busy time of my entire life. And look, first of all, I write for a living, so it's not like I'm crushing stones with my hand or something. I mean, it's not, I'm not killing myself, but it is horrific. And the central question of the past week, ever since that Surface went on sale last week, has revolved around what you're talking about, this Windows RT versus Windows 8 thing. I have now received over 1,000 emails that I would put into a category called, these people have no idea what they're talking about. And by that, I mean a large majority of them have purchased or pre-ordered a Surface.
And they think they're going to
have no idea that this thing is not going to run desktop applications.
So one of the biggest questions I've gotten is, will this have desktop mode?
Yeah, it will. This is part of the confusion.
Yeah. Because
every single thing that's present on the desktop in Windows 8, with 2 exceptions, is available on Windows RT. The desktop's there, Explorer is there, all of the utilities are there, except for Windows Media Player and storage spaces.
But you can't install desktop applications.
No. If it's on there, obviously you can run it. It comes with Paint and WordPad and Notepad and all the stuff that is in Windows. It's all there. But if it's not there, you can't get it.
But why?
Not on the desktop.
But why?
Because Windows RT is not Windows.
No. Why leave it there then?
Oh, because, okay, actually, this is a theory now, not just a fact. I would say the reason is, I think, that the new Metro environment, which is common between Windows 8 and Windows RT, even though the underlying platform is completely different, is not complete. It's just not ready. And it's possible that in Windows 9 or Windows 10 or whatever, some version in the future, that the desktop will become optional or just be dropped completely, but that what it's going to take is for the Metro environment to step up to the task. And so the simplest way to put it, or the simplest example to use to sort of drive home what I'm talking about, is Windows has long had something called Control Panel, which is like a settings interface, where you go in and system settings are in there. In Windows 8 and Windows RT, there's a Metro equivalent to Control Panel called PC Settings. PC Settings only has possibly 25% of all of the settings are available in Windows. It's got some selection of settings. The rest are still available only in Control Panel. So there are certain features that you can only configure today through Control Panels. That's the only way you can do it.
No, that's absolutely right.
So that's an example of where Metro is not complete. It doesn't have the full Control Panel interface yet in Metro. So you can't get rid of desktop. Now, people have argued, and these are good arguments to have, I guess, that maybe they should have just left the desktop out anyway. Maybe they could have done something like, desktop apps only run full screen, so they sort of look like, Metro apps or whatever. And, maybe, but what they decided to do was shoot for consistency, and Windows RT looks and acts and works just like Windows 8. It just doesn't.
I mean, that's going to be.
It's going to kill people.
I know. What's going to happen?
I had someone write me today, right before you called me on Skype. And I'm, by the way, I want to be really clear here. I'm not making fun of people. It's sad to me that people don't understand this stuff. It's completely understandable. I don't think Microsoft has done an effective job of communicating this stuff. But right before you called me, somebody wrote me and said, if I buy a Surface with Windows RT today, and I don't like the limitations of it, can I just upgrade it to Windows 8 Pro and get all that stuff back? And it's like, wow, no.
Yeah.
Like Windows RT,
it doesn't work
runs
like
on
that.
ARM. It's basically like the iPad from a hardware perspective. Surface RT is like an iPad. Surface with Windows 8 Pro is like a PC. They're not the same thing.
The other question that I received, and it was pretty interesting, they said, well, what if someone develops an application that runs on ARM but on desktop?
They can't.
Is that possible?
It's possible, but they will not be able to distribute it. Microsoft will not allow those applications to happen on ARM.
Yeah, but how are they going to do that? I mean, let's say I make let's say I make an ARM application on my website and I post it on my website.
How would you do that?
How would I do what?
Create that application.
I don't know. Who knows? I'm not a developer. I'm just saying, if someone wants to develop a non-Metro interface application to run on desktop.
All right, so I actually do think this is going to happen over time. I think, and I can't remember if we talked about this, but if we didn't, I have a theory that part of the expansion of the capabilities of Windows 8 and Windows RT is going to be more desktop interoperability stuff with Metro. And that notion of, maybe we'll have desktop apps that can run full screen and they'll be more integrated with Metro in some ways. I do think that's going to happen. And I think that the way that Microsoft can get around the ARM limitations is to simply provide a way for developers to submit desktop applications, put them through a certification process that's based on something they're already doing for Metro apps anyway, and just allow that kind of thing to happen. But the problem is that, Windows RT is kind of a different thing. I mean, it's designed for systems that have much less memory and much less storage, And so, the market for people who say, I really want Windows RT, but I also want to get Adobe, CS Suite with, Photoshop and everything else, is not a big one. I don't think that there's a lot of crossover there. On the same machine.
No. I don't think that's gonna. The guys that are gonna use Photoshop and do video editing and think that they could do it on this device, I think that's gonna be a very small portion of people. But I think it's gonna be more of the people that are like, hey, I've been using Quicken for 97.
Yeah,
and
then you can't run Windows RT. That's simple. Like, good for you, not Windows RT. Yeah. The Windows RT, the limitations there are. Well, they're manyfold. I mean, part of it has to do with performance. Like I said, these machines, the hardware, which is very consistent across Windows RT devices, is not as, balls out, high end as you can get on a PC. It's low end mobile hardware. It just is, So there's a performance issue, but it's also about security. I mean, Windows 8 and Windows RT, the Metro environment is locked down. On Windows RT, everything is locked down. So no, you cannot install WinZip. But you can also not install a virus. That's the point.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, if desktop is there, and let's say I'm WinZip, and I make an application, I make WinZip that runs on ARM. How is Microsoft going to stop that? Number one. Number two, that's just going to add to the confusion because now there's a third desktop exists, and now you're still in that environment.
So the PC world as it exists today is like the Wild West. It's wide open. Microsoft has agreements with PC makers where they're allowed to do certain things to Windows. Most PC buyers would agree that the things that those people do to Windows are terrible and that they ruin the experience. Microsoft, every version of Windows has said, oh, we're working really closely with these guys. We're going to get ahead of this. Don't worry about it. Yeah. This time will be better. And every single time Windows Vista comes out or Windows 7 comes out and now Windows 8 comes out and it's like, crap, we're all over these machines. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And there's nothing you can do to stop users from doing it to themselves by browsing to the wrong websites, downloading crap, and getting viruses and other malware. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, with Windows RT, this is the do-over, the mulligan that Microsoft has. So looks and works like Windows 8, but it prevents you from doing all that stuff. You can't do it. So someone may hack it, someone may break it, I don't know. But as of today, the way it works is that you can't do it.
The other thing I was asked is there Explorer?
Yeah. This is what I'm right.
But that's my whole point. It's like you'll explain to them and you'll say like, hey, listen, desktop is there, this is there, that's there, and they're like, where's Explorer?
No, I know. It's like otherwise, well, not otherwise, just intelligent people. Paul, I've read everything you wrote about Windows RT. I thank you for bringing all these issues to the forefront. This is a really important discussion. Is Windows Explorer part of Windows? Or, how am I going to get to a USB memory drive if I can't use File Explorer?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, ugh.
Exactly.
It's there.
It's there.
There's some stuff we don't know about, So, for example, we'll know about it soon. The reviews are going to be out soon. Surface RT will be very telling for some things. The reviews, because people have been using these things for about a week now and can tell you about this stuff. But you cannot, for example, install browser add-ons in the desktop version of Internet Explorer, which, yes, is available in Windows RT. Okay. We know that Microsoft has some sort of a Flash whitelist thing going on in IE and Windows 8, and presumably this will be available in Windows RT. So presumably we'll be able to run Flash in IE on Windows RT, but in the Windows 8 world, that's only the Metro version. So if you were going to run the desktop version of IE on Windows RT, does that mean there are literally no plugins ever, no Flash, no nothing? I think that it does. But it also means that you can't install a competing third-party desktop browser like Firefox or Chrome or whatever. So that's really limiting, obviously. And it's particularly limiting because, again, it looks and works and is in, Windows. And we're used to being able to do whatever we want on Windows. But, the important thing to think about, I guess, with RT is that RT is Microsoft's attempt to make a devices version of Windows that they would never use the word limited, but it is limited in key ways on purpose to prevent you from screwing up your device. Yeah. It's designed to work like a device, not like a computer, which again is just freewheeling cesspool that you can do anything you want to.
Now the other thing is, what is Microsoft doing to educate the consumer that these are two separate things?
Oh, I can answer that one. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And I'm telling Paul, it's going to be a nightmare.
There's a page, obviously, on the Surface website that says compare.
But nobody does that.
Here's how they compare. Doesn't answer all the questions because, the Surface Pro thing isn't even out yet. But, no, this is my central problem. I don't think they've done enough. I think I know because I've gotten email from them that people have ordered this thing and have no idea that it's not going to do X,
Sure.
And there are other things that it's going to be. And there, by the way, there are people, Mary Jo Foley had this conversation with me on Windows Weekly last week. She said, I like that it doesn't do all this stuff. I think that's
I do too.
Great.
I do too. And I think for someone like my father, this is a perfect device because he can't break it.
Until it isn't. See, the problem is it sounds like it is. But the problem is eventually you're going to need that stupid Java plugin or the whatever it is, the little thing. You're like, but surely it must integrate with LastPass. I mean, right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a LastPass app, a Metro app that's terrible, but it does not offer that same functionality. Like
it's a whole new platform. That's how people have to see it.
This is something that may get fixed over time, as apps appear. I mean, I guess I would also say that we made this transition with iPads no problem. I mean, people put up with the limitations of an iPad without ever thinking there were limitations. But again, I think the problem with the Surface and with Windows RT in general is that because it looks exactly like Windows, it has File Explorer, it has Paint.
Do you think that's a mistake?
It has Office.
Do you think it would have been better off if they did not put desktop on that device?
Yeah, but like I said, they
can't.
They didn't do it because they can't. It's just not ready yet. Windows, the Metro thing is not done.
But is that the reason? Like Metro is not finished.
Right.
That's why it's still like this.
It's a weird, bizarre Frankenstein's monster.
It is, and it's the more you go into it, the more complicated it gets, and you start realizing like, okay, you know what? Oh yeah, Windows was completed, it's done, but no, not really. They're still developing this. Because they do not know how the consumer is going to work with it. They don't have a real-time experience with this device. There's no testing, real-world testing that has been done because it's a first-gen device technically.
I didn't touch an RT device. I didn't see one in real life until September.
I think the biggest problem is, you're right. I think that's a problem, number one. Number two, the big problem is that it's Windows, but it's not Windows. It's a restart, and that's very difficult for people to see that.
My very first reaction to it was, it's Windows. It's Windows 8. It's got the Metro stuff. It's got the desktop. It looks the same. Office runs fine. Somebody asked me, does it have like, when you have a Windows computer, you can go in and see what the Windows Experience Index is. It's like a score of performance and everything. Does Windows RT have that? Actually, no. So it's one of the weird little things that's not there for whatever reason. I think the reason is all the RT things are basically identical, and B, I think they're trying to get away from that on RT because RT is supposed to be more of a consistent platform, but whatever. But it's Windows. Paint runs, WordPad runs. Remote desktop works. You can remote desktop to a server or to a Windows 8 computer. You can run Photoshop over remote desktop. It works fine. Okay, but so I only used it for a couple of days, and of course I mentioned this, and then people started asking me these very detailed questions. Well, does it do this? Does it do that? What happened? I have this kind of printer. Will that work? I don't know. I mean, and I think this is gonna be it's like the 7 stages of grief. I think people are gonna get this thing, turn it on, and be like, oh, thank God, it's just like Windows. I was so worried about this. It's gonna be fine. But then they're going to get to this point where it says, okay, now I need, I got to use like GoToMeeting or something, and I need Java, whatever it is. Nope. It just doesn't work.
Well, I mean, I was talking to someone about this, and I told them, like, you may be better off just buying one of these lower end. I know Asus put out a bunch of lower end laptops that are kind of convertible computers. The touch screen computers, and you flip them and you could use it. They might be better off just getting one of those.
So this is going to be a hard thing because there's no way to make a single declaration about what is better. There's all these different devices. Some of them run Windows 8, some run Windows RT. I'm going to test some of them. I'm not going to do all of them, but there's the Acer Iconia that I was talking about, which is a very thin RT-like tablet, but running Windows 8, which to me, if this thing gets the battery life and has the power management functionality of Windows RT, is a win-win because it does everything. There are going to be big devices. There are going to be the ThinkPads, like I'm having trouble remembering which one's which, but the Yoga, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a ThinkPad Edge.
Yeah.
I could be getting that. No, it's not. I'm sorry. The Yoga is an IdeaPad, right? So it looks a lot like their current IdeaPads. The screen flips around. They have a ThinkPad Edge machine, which I think is the Twist, which is actually a fairly big kind of a laptop. It's not like a thin, light Ultrabook.
But they've always had that. I mean, that's
right. But now there's a twisty one that has Windows 8 on it. Different people are going to gravitate toward different kinds of devices. And there's a lot of questions. It's almost like a flow chart you have to go through. What's the most important to you? I would say the first question you need to ask yourself, and you have to be really thorough here, is whether you can really live without anything that runs in Windows today that you got outside of Windows. And I don't know, maybe the thing is you go into Control Panel, you go to Add Remove Programs, and you look at the list. Some of the stuff in there is going to surprise you because there are weird little browser add-ons, toolbars and Java and plugins like Silverlight that doesn't work on Windows RT. And these things are gonna, you got to sort of remember, like, why do I have this? Did I put this in here? Is there a reason? And if there is, you can cross off Surface RT and all those other Surface devices right away. And then it just becomes a conversation about device types.
Yeah, it's gonna
running Windows 8.
Like there are some of these like hybrid devices.
Mm-hmm.
Like initially, my whole argument was like, well, no, if it's a tablet, you'll just look for RT. If it's a laptop, it's not RT. It's x86.
Yeah.
That's not the case because some of these devices are actually
right.
ARM-based laptops.
So, by the way, armed with the theory that Microsoft has never effectively communicated Windows RT to people, I went back and I looked it up. The truth is, Microsoft has communicated Windows RT pretty effectively. The problem is they've only done it once, and they've done it to the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
They haven't done a good job of getting this out to the public. But months and months and months ago, like 18 months ago, Microsoft announced that they were going to port Windows to something called System on a Chip, right? This is slightly different than Windows on ARM, which became Windows RT, but what it is a new kind of architecture, of which ARM is only one example. The other example is an Intel x86-based design based around this new Atom chip. Those systems are going to have the same low-level capabilities as ARM devices, meaning they're going to have connected standby, they're going to have some of the secure boot stuff, and they're going to have these sort of innate capabilities, some of which are just not available on traditional PCs, just not available. They will be eventually, but they're not right now. So this new generation Atom, which I think is called Clover Trail, is Intel's answer to the Atom, to the ARM chipset for Windows 8 devices. It is very possible. We'll wait and see. I don't have any here to tell you whether this is true or not, but it's possible that there will be new Atom x86 Clover Trail devices that are as thin and light as ARM devices and get just as good a battery life. And if that's true, those will be better for people today.
Yeah.
Because they will also give you that Windows 8 compatibility, the Windows compatibility. And it's not just applications, right? It's hardware. So Windows 8 and RT have these things called class drivers. Most printers will just work. Most keyboards will just work. Most mice will just work. USB storage will just work. But it's all very basic. And so if you plug a Microsoft keyboard into a Windows RT device, it will load the class driver and the keyboard will work. But if you plug it into a Windows 8 device, it will load the class driver. The device will just work. And then in the background, it will continue downloading the real driver that has all this additional functionality in a control panel, by the way, that you can use to configure it further. So the experience is actually always going to be better on Windows 8 for a while. I mean, I think this thing, we'll get there with the RT stuff.
You're talking about both, the tablet experience and
so in other words,
desktop.
not just software,
okay,
but also hardware.
Okay.
Right? That a lot of hardware will just work, yes, but you'll get basic capability. Printing is a good example. So basic printer, not a big deal. You get like page preview, choose color or not, that kind of stuff. But you know how printer makers make those custom drivers with all this. You can do edge printing. You can do like printer and different kinds of paper. There's all this different stuff you can do. The class drivers are not going to give you that. The class drivers are only going to take you so far. You're going to need the actual drivers to do some of the more advanced functionality. So, again, it's Windows 8. It's going to be better in some ways, more complex, but more functionality. And you can get viruses, so lucky you. You get
lucky you. You can screw it up
get the whole
all on
package.
your own. Now, one thing that was asked to me by a few people, and I didn't really know how to respond, was, okay, so Windows 8 is coming out, and I personally know that there's a certain requirement for Windows 8, like laptop, with the touch, with the trackpad, and certain other things. What's going to happen to all these older computers that are on the market? Are they going to be upgraded to Windows 8 and sold? And if so, you really have to do your homework now, so you could kind of tell like which one is a Windows 8 device that came out and which one is Windows 7 that has been upgraded to Windows 8.
Yeah, Windows 8 is only about 10 times better when you have touch hardware.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is true on desktop computers and on traditional laptops. One of the things I noticed today, Microsoft updated all of their Xbox apps for Windows 8. And so I had to write these app update articles like I've been doing. Unfortunately, I had to do 4 of them all back to back. It was kind of a mess. So Xbox Music, Xbox Video, Xbox Smart Glass, and Xbox Games, all updated today. A lot of stuff going on there. And so obviously to write these articles effectively, what I have to have in front of me are the old version of the app and the new version of the app. And so the old version of the app is running on a tablet with multi-touch. And the new version of the app is running on my Ultrabook that I actually use every day. And the funny thing is, when you go back and forth between these computers, at least 5 times today, I reached out to the screen on my Ultrabook and tried to swipe it to move the screen.
Yeah.
The screen does not support multi-touch, right? And it is amazing how much it changes it. Even if multi-touch is not the primary interface you're going to use on that machine, maybe because it is a traditional Ultrabook, that ability just to have that there, it's interesting how you can move back and forth between the touch and the keyboard and the mouse or the trackpad or however you're doing it. I mean, it happens. I experienced this 3 years ago when I wrote the Windows 7 book, and I had a HP all-in-one touch machine. Used that for a couple of weeks to do the touch stuff that was in Windows 7, which in retrospect is kind of a joke. And then you go back to your computer and you find yourself, you're putting your finger up on the screen, like, why isn't it doing anything? People discount that, but I'm telling you, even on a traditional type of machine, you really, really do want multi-touch.
Multi-touch,
that puts Windows 8 over the top.
Are you talking multi-touch as far as the trackpad goes, or are you talking multi-touch as in like a touch screen?
That's a half step. I mean, that's fine. You want it as on a laptop, like the Ultrabook I'm referring to as a multi-touch trackpad, does not have a multi-touch screen. It should have both.
It should have both.
You should have the choice of interfaces. We're way more, able to adapt to these multiple input types than I think people have, give us credit for. We can all do this, and we'll do it naturally. You'll be surprised by how you do it.
Well,
I think this thing makes a big difference.
What do you think the reaction is going to be in like 3 months? What do you think the market's going to be? Do you think the OEMs are going to kind of be like, okay, well, we have to make the hardware that kind of works properly with this? Or do you think some people are going to get it and some people are not?
There's a reaction that apparently is occurring right now with the hardware makers where they're not sure which devices to make because they don't know which ones are going to take off.
So they're making all of them.
They're a little nervous about putting too much of one device type into the market. I don't know that that's true, but it sounds believable. 3 months from now or 6 months from now, I think this is all going to iron out. I do think that there are too many device types occurring and that there'll be some selection of them that make the most sense, and we'll see. But I mean, honestly, I think the one that's going to make the most sense to the biggest crowd, and again, I don't mean this is like everybody, but the big market is really going to be tablet that can clip on with a keyboard and become a laptop, or the laptop where the keyboard comes off. The tablet part, the screen comes off, which is essentially the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That kind of dual use thing is nice. That you hop on a plane, assuming it gets like 10 hours of battery life, because that's the key, is you can get on a plane, pop off the keyboard, watch movies or play games or whatever you want to do. And then when you get to wherever you're going, you pop the screen back on the keyboard, you get to work, I think that is going to be huge. Or you bring it between work and home. You carry the tablet however you commute. When you get to work, you plug it in the dock, big screen, keyboard, mouse, blah, 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 do your work, pop it off, go home, pop it in at home and get to work. Or sit on the couch and use Smart Glass to play games on your Xbox or watch Game of Thrones or whatever it is you're doing. I do feel that kind of a multifunction device, which is essentially a tablet, I think that's going to be it. I think that's going to be the mainstream.
Like Asus today announced 3 budget-friendly laptops. The Vivo Q200, 400, and Q200, S400, S500.
Okay.
And they vary from... and by the way, I believe they're Ultrabooks.
They're not tablet type things. They're just traditional.
They're classified as Ultrabooks, I think, and they're pretty thin. One of them looks just like a MacBook Pro.
Okay.
And they go from 11 inches to 15 inches, and they start off at around $499, and they go up to $649.
Yeah.
That's really affordable. I mean, if that's...
Would you say that's more or less affordable than $1,699?
Well, Paul, I mean, you're paying for design now. I mean, come on. You could...
I mean, if you're going to put it on a scale...
I mean, like to drive a BMW. If you're happy with your Chevy Malibu, that's perfectly fine with me.
Right. I think we would all like to drive a BMW, but most of us can only afford the Chevy
Malibu. These devices sport the multi-touch, trackpad, and it's a touch screen.
Yeah, there you go. I really, seriously, even on a regular laptop where the screen doesn't pop off, I'm telling you, it's gonna make a huge difference.
I'm really hoping that this is actually like whatever I envision in my head for this device to be. I really hope it's true because I've had some really awful experiences with touch screen devices. Just when you swipe, it doesn't do anything. Are they going to cut corners, or are they actually going to do it right? That's my biggest fear with this.
Let me ask you something. So it'd be a little weird at this point because they would be seen as copying. But how awesome on the Apple side of the fence would it be if that new 13-inch MacBook Retina screen popped off, and when it was popped off, it was an iPad?
iOS. I think that'd be phenomenal.
Now, people would love it. Yeah. Right? And, maybe over time they make some...
Happy as a clam. People walking around with 17-inch screens like this.
Yeah. Well, okay, I don't know, 17-inch, but you know what I'm saying.
And they're going to try to take pictures with it, too.
Yes, they are. God. They are. Yeah, they are.
Hold on, Paul.
Well, no, but seriously, that would be great, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't it be great?
I think it'd be great.
I'm not saying that sarcastically. I mean,
but do you think that's a realistic thing for them to ever do? I don't think so. They want to sell you 2 devices.
No, it's a little too Frankenstein-y for those guys. But, I mean, I could picture people loving that kind of thing for the same reason that, a lot of people carry around a MacBook and an iPad today. I think a lot of those guys would be like, wow, it would be kind of cool to have one, machine.
Yeah,
I guess on the flip side, the other way they could go, and this probably makes a lot more sense, is to have, they would never call it like an iPad Pro, but basically formalize the keyboard connection stuff and just do that stuff I've been talking about. Add the application switching on the keyboard and just make it make sense as iOS evolves. I mean, there's no reason that it couldn't take over the functions of what most people do in Mac OS X.
What do you think of the lower end devices, though, Paul? Do you think these lower end devices, the experience is going to be as good? I mean, right now, if you buy a $500 notebook and you buy a $1,000 notebook, you know what? If you buy the right one, the experience will be pretty much the same thing. What do you think it's going to be like when you're buying a $500, touchscreen notebook and you buy a $1,000 one?
Depends on what's going on there. So I have not tried. Well, actually, I use that Iconia. Is the Iconia a Curliva Trail? I don't even know.
The new one?
Yeah, the Iconia W700, I think is the name of it.
Iconia.
Do we know what this is?
Hang on, Paul. Hold on. I got to find out from our producers. The Iconia.
Getting over my hatred of Atom. If that thing is an Atom,
I think it's an i3.
Okay, so that's a different thing. Yeah. So the key is going to be whether these Atom-based machines, the new ones, and the ARM-based Windows RT devices perform at a level that is acceptable. If you remember that this week, Google announced a new Samsung Chrome, kind of a notebook thing, a Chromebook that is $249. And the reviews I read of it said all the same thing, which is, it looks pretty good, but the performance is really bad. Windows RT, in my experience, is not like that. But these Atom-based devices can't be like that either. If they are, it's just kind of game over on that one. So we have, I don't know. I don't have one here to tell you. I will get some form of Clover Trail machine. I will compare it to the Surface, and we will see. Right now, I just don't know.
My prediction is we're going to see an onslaught and a huge popularity rise in these 11.5-inch devices.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to use it as both, a laptop and the tablets. I think that is going to be.
Yep. I
think it's a little small. But let me ask you this, Paul. If I were to take the 13-inch MacBook, right?
Yep.
I'm curious because it's 13 inches, but I mean the bezel. How big is it with the bezel?
Yeah. In other words, it's just too big of a machine.
Like it's too big of a machine. So how are they going to? I mean, here's
here's how to think of it. The Lenovo ThinkPad Twist is basically a ThinkPad Edge with the screen twist around. What that tells me is that machine is primarily a laptop because it's probably about an inch thick or almost an inch thick, kind of big and heavy. So using it as a tablet is the secondary use case. It's designed only to be used occasionally like that. So if you're stuck on a plane, it's probably pretty cool. You can switch the screen around, watch movies. If you're sitting in front of the TV watching movies or TV shows, it probably doesn't matter. But it's not something you want to carry around. It's kind of a big machine to carry around all day. The thin and light tablets, like the little Acer Iconia I'm talking about, is primarily a tablet. Except that when you dock it, it becomes like a desktop computer, and that's probably not too bad.
Okay, so how about the
time
Yoga?
When you would use that thing as a laptop is, I mean, for me, it's just too small. I'm too big of a person, but maybe for some people that's okay. You need to, once you move up to like a 13-inch screen, you're not talking about a beautiful thin light laptop tablet anymore, right?
But what about like something like the Yoga, which it doesn't twist, it literally flips over.
No, but all you have to do is look at an IdeaPad today to understand that thing is kind of thick. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, I bet. It's something like that. It's not an Ultrabook. I mean, this is the problem. We're going to see Ultrabooks that have these screens, I think. But again, we're in kind of a feeling up period. I think some of these machines are really going to take off, and some of them are going to just wither and die. I
mean, the marketplace is going to decide for the OEMs which is the device, and I think
speaking of which,
yes,
you know what I wanted to tell you?
No, what?
Did you hear during the because I keep going back to Apple, I can't stop talking about Apple. We have routinely dismayed the fact that the 13-inch MacBook has never changed the screen res. It's always been 1280 by 800.
An awful screen resolution,
right?
Where the MacBook Air has a higher
I think they explained why today.
What did they say?
It is their best-selling Mac ever. That machine outsells all Mac laptops and outsells all Macs, period. I think they didn't change it because it just sells too well. I think I'm surprised it wasn't an option, but I think they left it the same because there was no reason to screw with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only logical explanation. Why would they? I mean, it baffled me because, and you brought this up, I had no idea about this. The Air has a better screen resolution on the 13-inch than the MacBook Pro did.
Yep.
And when they announced the last year's MacBook Pros, and they announced the upgraded screen on the Air, they left the MacBook Pro alone.
Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah. There's a lot of inconsistencies, and it's starting to get really confusing. And this whole, Apple has X amount of products, and that's all you get, and this is why things are done that way. It's totally out the window now. And it's a different Mac. I mean, this is a totally different Apple than it was 2 years ago. They look at things in a totally different light, and that's probably attributed to Steve not being around anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's give him the credit. I don't know.
All right.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, there was a couple of questions that came to me this week.
Okay.
I've never gotten this much email over a show, And a lot of it, I think it's just a lot of people's concerns over this device. I don't even think that they're concerned about Windows 8. I think they just don't know what to buy. They want to buy something. They don't know what to buy because
God
there's
bless
so
them for
much.
wanting to buy something.
Because I want to buy something. Now, I'm in the weird situation where the Surface order didn't go through. Do I want to buy a Surface, or do I want to spend $200 more and get something that's retractable? You know, I could take it off and move it around.
Sure. Well,
I don't know.
Comes the first, like I said, the first one is you really got to be serious and honest about. Honest is the wrong term. I actually think there are a lot of people who believe they could get away with using Windows RT and are wrong, and that they're going to be really disappointed. And like I said, you know, spend some time really looking at what's on your PC, not just the obvious stuff. Like, I know you're running Office and Chrome or whatever, but I mean, really get in there and look at it because, you know, actually maybe Chrome's a good example. There will be a Metro version of Chrome and it will be okay, I'm sure. But, you know, if you use Chrome, you know that you can log into your Google account, you can sync up all the plugins and all the stuff you do. You can access the tabs that are open on other computers and devices and all that kind of stuff. If you like the desktop version of Chrome, it's not happening on Windows RT. Sorry. You know, it's just not going to be there. So, you know, that's a good high level version, but there's all these little things in there too. You may use a website that uses like Silverlight every day. You don't even know. It's not going to work in Windows RT. You know, you're going to have to figure this stuff out. So that would be the first one. And if it's Windows 8, you know what? It's not that bad because there's going to be an awesome selection of Windows 8 devices. It's going to be great.
Yeah. I mean, I recommend you just go to a store and actually have, you know, play around with these devices.
That's going to be, yes. Right.
That's what you have to do. I would not recommend going to Amazon or going to bestbuy.com and just ordering whatever you see.
Starting Friday, people are going to walk into a Microsoft store expecting to buy a Surface. And what they're going to see is other devices, and they're going to buy one of those.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility. That's a realistic possibility.
Yep.
One of the questions I got, Paul, this week was about Xbox, and we haven't spoken about Xbox, the next generation Xbox. And they brought up an interesting point. They said over the last couple of years, consoles have followed the same path. The console comes out at an extremely high price. People flood to buy it.
Yep.
And within a year or two, it drops. The price you see you know, $100, $200 price drop.
Yeah, prices drop pretty regularly over time, I would say.
But the price starts off really high. Are we going to see that with this generation? Because we have seen the Xbox has been out on the market for a while now. The prices have been.
Is that true though? I mean, what was the starting price of the Xbox 360? What was it, like
$399?
$400?
$400. Yeah. It was $400, but now I mean you could go in and buy it for $99.
Now, history has proven that the first generation Xbox wasn't necessarily the greatest hardware, but
mine still works, by the way.
Yeah, but it's also still louder than hell. I mean, you know, I think there's an expectation when you buy a console that it's going to sit in your living room and work for years and years and years, and they do mostly, right? I mean. So I don't know that the high price of you know, I talk about how Apple is expensive. We talked about iPod Touch starting at $300. The iPad Mini starts at $329. The actual iPad starts at $500. You know, that new MacBook is $1,699. These are all big numbers. You know, one of the reasons they're big numbers is because people replace these things really fast. It's kind of amazing, especially on the low end. I mean, a lot. You know, yes, there are people out there who have been using an iPod Classic for 7 years. I get that, but you know, they're selling a lot of these things to the same people, folks. I mean, there are people who replace these things every year, and that makes it more expensive, doesn't it? I mean, if you spend $300 or $400 on a console and use it for 10 years, I mean, you didn't really spend that much money.
$30 a year? Yeah, you didn't. I mean, you didn't at all.
So, anyway, I'm sorry. What was your question?
Are they
it's a different kind of thing? But
so now that we're used to this different type of pricing structure, over the last couple of years. Are they going to go back to how it was and release a $400 console and then slowly bring the price down? Or are they going to have, okay, you get the $299, you get the $199, the $99 one?
You know what I think they're going to do? And this is just speculation, but there was a hint of this week. They're going to do the subscription thing. I think they're going to keep the price down artificially, but they're going to make you pay a little bit more for an Xbox Live Gold, but sign up for X number of years, where at the end, you probably paid a little bit more for it. People are used to buying things this way, right? It's how we pay for cable. It's how we pay for our smartphones. And well, I do think we're going to hit some threshold where we just have too many of these recurring monthly bills. They've apparently had great success with the kind of subscription version of the Xbox 360, where you can, and they've expanded it now to different models. And so they just announced this either today or yesterday that you can buy various versions of the 360 with Kinect. You pay a lot less up front than you would if you just bought them, but then you're going to pay more on an annual basis for Xbox Live Gold, and you have to sign up for X number of years. I think it might be just 2 years. I'm not even sure what the deal is. I happen to think that these kinds of things are sort of a bad deal, but on the other hand, what it does is open up this device to a wider market, because there are certain people who look at even the Xbox 360 today, which, like you said, is much less expensive than it was. They still can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, a lot of people can't justify spending the $399, but they'll spend the $299 and pay a little bit more every month for whatever Xbox Live.
Hey, how well do you think smartphones would be doing right now if you had to pay for your 2 years of cellular service up front?
Oh, awful.
Right? If you were presented with a bill for $2,200 when you bought a cell phone or a smartphone, no one would. I mean, they would be selling at 1/10 the rate or 1/100th, right? It wouldn't even be close.
I'll tell you, it's a very interesting time because Xbox Live is coming out probably next year, right? Next Christmas.
Think so, yeah.
We really don't have much information about it other than those leaked documents from like a year and a half ago.
That's basically all we have. Yeah,
that's all we have. We don't have anything, and to me, it seems like they're waiting to see what works in Windows 8 to kind of combine the two for this device, because it's not a console anymore. It's going to be our home entertainment device.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this. I mean, the current version of the console is actually pretty slow for when you're not playing a game. I mean, you can play some of the most excellent games, 1080p, it's beautiful and everything. Multiplayer with like 30 people in the room and all that works great. But man, you go to launch like the Netflix app or something, it's like, hello. You get that like circle thing in the middle of the screen. It's like, oh God, it's like really slow. I think that's going to be the area where the 720 or whatever they're going to call it is going to make the big difference, that it's going to be designed to run multiple things at the same time, and that this stuff is going to start up more quickly. It's probably going to be a lot more like Windows RT.
We also didn't touch on Windows Phone.
Yep.
What have we learned? Is there anything new coming out from that? I mean, it's kind of taken a back seat, in my opinion, to the Surface.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the Windows 8 Surface stuff is so huge. I mean,
with that said, do you think it was right for them to launch everything at the same time, or should it have been spaced out?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think, as with Apple, where their hand was kind of played for them, they're getting Windows Phone 8 on the Windows 8 bandwagon. They're kind of lining them up right now. Next year there's going to be a Windows Phone 9 or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a Windows 9 next year. So this is just the way it happens to go this year. They've launched at the same time every year for 3 years in a row now. So, I think Windows Phone 8 is going to be awesome. I've played with some of the devices now. Unfortunately, I've got a lot on my plate. So,
in an ideal situation, Paul, people are going to walk in there with their shopping carts and be like, "I'll take a desktop, I'll take a tablet, and I'll take a phone."
Yeah,
that's not that's not reality.
No, it's not Apple. It's not going to work that way. But yeah, it would be nice.
I don't know. I'm curious on how it's going to affect the sales, how it's going to affect it may be a good thing, because if one does phenomenal, the other
I would just say this. So obviously we're all a little strung out over Surface. We're a little strung out over Windows 8. That's going to happen Thursday, Friday. So we need to get over that little hump. But it's going to end. I mean, eventually, we're all these questions about Windows RT for the past week, right? It's all going to go away. I mean, people have reviewed this thing. The reviews are going to appear. The questions are going to be answered. So eventually this stuff becomes less of a question. We can move on. Windows Phone 8 is happening Monday, right? I mean, I think the devices are going to launch in November. Honestly, I think people are going to be blown away with it. It's beautiful. The devices are beautiful. At one thing at a time. But I think Windows Phone 8 is going to be a big deal. So,
and I think that's it, Paul. I have no other questions. I was going down some of the lists here. But it is amazing how many emails we got this week about Windows Phone and Windows 8 and what's going to happen with the Surface. I think people are genuinely concerned with what should I buy, what's going to be good on the market and what's not. The only thing that I really think might hurt them is in the retail front, the employees not being trained.
Yeah, well, I think on that vein,
like if I go into Staples,
yeah, but okay,
are they going to know what to sell me?
When Apple created their stores, this was the excuse they gave. It's like, people, you walk into a store and there's a Mac dangling off of a security wire, and one of the keys has been popped out by somebody, and there's like porn on the screen or whatever. It's a bad experience. So
it's always porn on the Apple screen.
yeah. So there's, I think there's an impetus for Microsoft to do the same thing where, PCs look like crap in Best Buy. Those guys don't know what they're doing. Maybe they need to do their own thing as well. And this is like them taking control of things from the PC makers. It's part of the same theory, the same strategy, whatever. I sort of understand the need for them to do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think their whole argument is, if you want the best experience and you want to know what the right product to buy, you go into a Microsoft store and that's where you buy it, because we're trained to know.
There's just not enough of them yet. But seriously, if there's one in your area, I think, the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, this is just like an Apple store. And it's like, yeah, sort of. It's a lot warmer looking than an Apple store. It doesn't quite look like a museum. We're not in an operating room. It's okay to touch stuff. And, you see people playing with Kinect and having a good time and playing video games and stuff. And I actually think the Microsoft store experience is better than the Apple store experience. And, they do things with third-party computers like Signature that I think is a big deal. Now they're getting into hardware themselves. Obviously, the Surface is going to be very clean and not loaded up with crap, where I think that's a big deal. So I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff going on there, assuming they can get these stores out quickly enough.
So this Thursday, you're having a little party in the city in Manhattan.
Yep.
You're going to be there. Mary Jo's going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Yep.
The time. Do you know what time now officially?
No. I will post on my site tomorrow the exact details for this. But my understand. So if you figure we're going to do the earliest it could be is 6 p.m.
Okay. So let's say
6:30, somewhere in there.
Perfect. I could be. And then what time does it end? 9:30.
Well, there's an event starting at the Microsoft store. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10, and so we checked to see whether we needed to be there. It's like Kevin Turner, who's not the most exciting guy in the world, but I think there's like an event going on, so we're going to have to be there for that. So there's no reason we can't all just goon it up and walk over together or whatever. But I will post the details about this tomorrow. It's going to be 9 or 10.
Okay, so 9. It'll run through 9 and 10. We're going to be there. A lot of people should be coming. I know a bunch of people personally that are coming to hang out, have a drink. You could watch me get drunk.
That's weird.
And my wife is coming.
Good.
So she'll be. You could see the look of
disgust
unhappiness and disgust in her face
the normal look that graces her face.
Yeah. When I start screaming, "You guys suck! You should buy a Mac."
And that will be when I start fishing around for your car keys so I can give it to her.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly how every night ends for me.
That's great. Okay,
you guys suck. Well, the night before, Paul, I'm covering a red carpet event for the New Jersey Housewives.
Wow.
So tomorrow I'm in New Jersey covering an event, which should be a lot of fun. If you're in the tri-state area, if you're in New York, New Jersey, definitely come by. It's in Manhattan. Yeah. At a really cool place. We're going to have the details on the website, Paul's website, my website, and of course, I'll be making a post. We have a Facebook page for What the Tech. If you guys want to like us, you can get the information there. It's facebook.com/whatthetech, and I'll be posting the information there as well. So you'll find it somewhere.
It's in flux, but it's happening.
It's happening.
Need to figure out the exact time.
And of course, go to winsupersite.com for all your Microsoft needs, all your Paul Thurrott needs. Yes. You're going to have a very busy couple days, so I'm sure the website's going to be busy. And that's it, guys. We'll see you all next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.